Okay, Laura, would you like to come up and talk to us? We have our candidate, LauraLombard, for the 4th Congressional District here.
Just for while I'm talking with you, I'll take the mask off so you can actually see me a little bit. But Cowley County, look at this. This is amazing. I am really excited about this office opening. I am really excited to spend a lot of time down here in Winfield and our city and other communities throughout Cowley County and the rest of our district. We've already been down here 5 times? Something like that. We've been down quite a bit. We'll be back tomorrow. Before I get into the mix of this too, we're coming back tomorrow for the Black Lives Matter Pride Parade or Pride event that JJ's putting on. So hope to see everybody there tomorrow. Before that though, if you want to meet us here at 1:30, we're going to go out and canvass more of Winfield. Canvassing this time means leaving the palm card at the door. That's the coronavirus safe way of doing it. And then we'll call those same folks later. But anyone who's interested in doing that, meet us here at 1:30, and we'd love to get your help because we've got a lot of Winfield to cover tomorrow. So that's the administrative part of this. My name's LauraLombard. I am running for the 4th District. My journey with running for Congress really started, I would say a few days after Trump won the election 4 years ago. And yeah, I mean, like most of us, I felt that devastation when he won. You know, that fear of what was going to happen to our country. And on the one hand, I think things have not gone quite as dramatically as I thought, but on the other hand, yes, they did. So I think we need to make sure that this year he does not have another 4 years in office. I ran in the primary in 2018 and got to know a lot of folks that way, which is really going to help this year in name recognition and people knowing who I am. I'm working with James Thompson, my opponent from last primary this year. He's been a great asset this time, and I think that we're going to win this year. This is the year for it. What do you guys think? Originally, so some of you probably know, I have an 8-month-old now. And so back as late as January, I didn't think I was going to throw my hat in the ring, but watching the impeachment hearings and when the coronavirus started to be spoken about, I realized this was not the year for us to sit back. This was the year to get in there and really fight. And again, we have to remove Trump from office. That's number 1. Number 2 is we need to get Ron Estes out of this office. Yes. And I will add this number 3, we need to get Barbara Boyer into the Senate.
Yes.
Okay? So as far as I'm concerned, my campaign is about getting me elected. It is also about getting Trump out of office, and it's about getting Barbara elected. Okay? So starting in about a month, actually a little less than about 2 weeks from now, we're going to start what's called the coordinated campaign. And that will be, so for instance, if Ed or Richard, whoever ends up being the candidate, if we're canvassing in their areas, we'll be taking their literature too, and any other candidate that's running within that same territory. We're going to have an office in Wichita. My campaign is also going to be running out of this office as well. So there'll be a lot going on here. And we're going to be looking at other places throughout the district as well to make sure that we have a really strong presence. My theory on winning is this. We know we have to do very well and win Sedgwick County and probably Harvey County, but we're going to be trying to do better in every single county in our district, and that includes here in Cowley. And if you all help with that, we can make that happen, and that's how we're going to win this year. So we already have and we'll continue to spend a lot of time down here, and I really am going to be looking to all of you in this room to be our helpers and getting out there and making sure that the word of all of these campaigns are happening. So what policy questions can I answer for everybody? I know there's going to be some good ones. I am very much for legalizing marijuana at the federal level. I'll put that out there since that's been talked about multiple times. Healthcare-wise, Medicaid expansion is a state level, but I'm all for it. I'm also for us expanding Medicare across the for all citizens. I want to make sure that everyone has affordable health care. Getting the price of prescriptions down is a huge issue. I agree with what you were saying. Again, a state level issue with the taxing on groceries, but any type of tax that hurts the poor and that does not ensure that the wealthy are paying their fair share needs to be abolished in this country. far as I'm concerned. So we need to make sure that all of our people have a chance to succeed, that they're not held down by the infrastructures that we're creating, the structures like tax structures that we're doing, those types of things. Those are all very important to me. Ken, I appreciated what you had to say about capitalism, and so I've been in business in various ways throughout my career, and I have, similarly to Ken, I think that there should be ethics around how people do business, right? That's a huge, important thing that we seem to have lost. I went to the Chamber of Commerce meeting for candidates this last week, and I have to say it was actually pretty eye-opening for me because I've spent a lot of time at various chamber events outside of Kansas before, and I've never seen something so partisan and so self-serving in my life. So, I mean, really, it was like, whoa, you know? And that's something that culture around business has to change. Business should not be at the expense of everyone else. If you can't succeed and be an ethical person, you probably shouldn't be in business, as far as I'm concerned. So all those types of things that we need to work on, and clearly, since that isn't the case, government needs to step in and put some parameters around businesses, whether it's the EPA in terms of climate change and our waterways and whatnot, or again, how businesses are trying to affect tax policy at state and national levels. We already know from our failed experiment here with the brownback taxes, and now they're trying to do that in Washington. So, and of course, my pal Ron Estes is the treasurer on that. So, why he is in the Ways and Means Committee in Washington is beyond me. But we're going to get him out of there because, again, he cannot be trusted to control our money. So those are some of the things. What else? Like, there's got to be other things.
About separation of church and state.
Yeah.
And I know Trump is using it as for his agenda and everything, but he's doing so many things. Like he has these people that I don't agree with that are right in his office and doing like who knows what. And like Betsy DeVos, and obviously she's there to promote her religious views, and like that's just, I mean, they're all just like hands. It's just. And that's not, and what they really need to realize is that like 27% of young people, or all people, are what they call nuns. They either don't believe in religion or it isn't a big thing to them. And any party is going to appeal to younger people, or
Democrats,
goes for everybody. They're going to have to take into account. And I know at one time Obama said, well, I may be religious, but I accept other people too. And I think Buttigieg made a comment too that he was.
He's religious,
but he said, I accept other people. If they have no religion, that's fine. We're all in this together. And
that's my viewpoint. I mean, that religion should be an individual's choice and feelings and heart, and that's for all of us to choose for ourselves. But as far as I'm concerned, the state has no place whatsoever. And more than that, too, I read earlier this week that they're trying to open up more policies so that churches can be more involved in politics in a legal way. We know they've in some ways been non-legally, but things like that need to be stopped. And no, I mean it's one of those things like religion is someone's relationship with their God, right? Or not, depending on what the situation is for them. But that's an individual's choice, and it should be out of the state completely, as far as I'm concerned. And we go to other issues like abortion and that one too, same thing. Keep the state out of it. So, JJ, you raised your hand.
Yeah, but I
actually. I will mention. So, JJ is. We were talking about criminal justice and what's going on with Black Lives Matter, and the campaign has. This is not public yet, but will be soon. We have set up our own civil rights advisory board. And JJ is graciously part of that with us. And the goal with this is a few things. One, just helping me and with my messaging and making sure I'm on point. I had a good learning experience about 2-3 weeks ago with another member of the board who was from Puerto Rico. And I was posting about Black Lives Matter, but I said something that hit a chord with him in terms of him feeling more like, Puerto Rico is one of our territories, right? Mm-hmm. So he's coming at the world from a different angle in that way, and he reached out and said, Laura, I like what you said, but, And it made me think and grow and understand. So having a really good, diverse group of people who can advise me, because I have blind spots, right? I'm coming from one perspective because of who I am. So I want to make sure that if there's any blind spots that I'm not seeing, that people feel comfortable saying, Laura, please, like think about it that way, right? And that's important. So that's one area that the board is going to be helping us with. The other piece that I think is extraordinarily exciting is that we're going to put together a piece of legislation that I can take with me to Washington next year that will really deal with certain areas of racial discrimination. So we're looking at it from an economic stance, we're looking at it from a judicial and policing stance, from an educational and messaging, and I'm forgetting one? Voting, thank you. From an electoral stance, the biggest one, anyway, from terms of voter suppression and gerrymandering and whatnot. So these are some of the issues that this group is really going to be talking about with me over the coming months. And again, the goal is to have something that I can take with me to Washington in 2021 that we can get passed and get going and make sure that we're really dealing with the issues at hand in a more substantial way. Yep.
What are your
Tariffs? Yep. Yeah. So I'm glad you asked about trade tariffs. My background is in international trade, and the way that I would handle the situation with China is this. We know there are problems with China. There are legitimate issues with how China does business. One of which is a lot of times they'll try to steal our property, our intellectual property for their own businesses, right? So instead of laying the hammer down in a way that's also laying the hammer down on us and our farmers and our manufacturers and us as consumers, I would go after those companies. And you can, as a government, you can freeze money in the accounts that are here in the United States. You can not allow those companies to do business here in the United States. You can take the case to the World Trade Organization. I mean, there are other ways that we can be handling this in a way that takes the power also away from the Chinese government to backlash on us, which is what's happening, right? Problem now is that it's already happened. That Trump has gotten us so far into this at this point that it's going to be, even when the tariffs get lifted at some point, which they will, is China going to come back in the same way and be partners with our soybean farmers, for example, or whatnot? I mean, they've moved on to other places. So how do we deal with that? We really need to find, I think for a while we're going to have to find new markets. We're going to have to market ourselves to other countries and try to make up ground in other places. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, but that's my area. So that's why I like to talk about it. So those are some of the things, and we're putting that out there. In fact, this weekend we're going to be doing a post exactly on that issue. It's already been written. So that we're going to be talking about that a lot, especially in rural communities, because it's devastating to our farmers, and it didn't have to be. So the other question was on Wall Street. Clearly, Wall Street needs to be regulated a lot more. I mean, again, it speaks to how ethical are people going to be on their own, or how ethical are they not going to be on their own, and they've shown that they're not, right? So that's when government, in my view, should step in and put some parameters around people when they're not behaving in a way that is for the public good. So that's, again, kind of a shorter answer, but in general, I think we really need to look at how Wall Street is run, and how do we put constraints around them in order to not hurt the population while they're making millions of dollars, right, off of us. That's not okay. So that's, again, that's a short-winded answer, or a short answer to a much bigger question, but that's my general viewpoint on it. Yeah, the corporate PACs. Yeah. Well, let's talk campaign finance for a minute then. Campaign finance is as a candidate who I've done well in my life, but I'm not independently wealthy at the same time. So I'm kind of in that middle ground, and it's the bane of existence for us, and it's the bane of existence for the population in terms of Citizens United. Citizens United opened up so that corporations could give unlimited amounts of money in a way that no one knows where the money is going, into procurement and whatnot. I'm not really for corporate PAC money in general, but and a lot of times people, corporate regular corporate PACs that are not super PACs, you know, they can only provide the same amount of money as you and I to a candidate, and it's also has to be reported. We're not taking any of that money either this year, but it's the super PACs, what Open Up with Citizens United, that's awful. Again, it's blind money going in, you don't know who or how much, it's unlimited. The candidate doesn't work directly with the super PAC, they work on the candidate's behalf without them asking, supposedly. But regardless of that, it's really changed the way politics works in this country in a way that's just detrimental to democracy. You know, so that's the key guy. So would I be for an amendment to the Constitution? Is it what? It was a Supreme Court case, so it is the law of the land right now. So the way that we have to deal with that is a constitutional amendment. Which is painful and it's hard to do, but I think if we can get enough people in office who support it, then it becomes doable. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, if it was me and I could just wave a magic wand and change how we do campaign finance, I think it should be publicly funded. I think that, you know, each level of candidacy, whether it's Congress or a state house or whatnot, would have a certain level of money that they're given to run their campaign through, you know, and to get that money, you have to maybe do something like, I don't know, so for a candidate like me, maybe I have to get 10,000 signatures in support, and then I become a full candidate and get, you know, so you're showing that people really want you, right? And then it's fair, how you use that money, if you're good at utilizing the X amount of dollars, more so than your other, you know, your opponent, great, you know? If you're not, too bad for you, but you know, I think it would be a much fairer system and allow so many more people to enter races, and we get a much bigger, you know, you wouldn't have to be independently wealthy to run for office. Sorry, what was it?
It's ruining it.
It is. No, it is. I mean, we've got a lot of issues that we've got to deal with in this country regarding how our democracy is going, but that is definitely at the top of the list. Okay, I don't know, oh, yeah, go ahead, JJ.
It's kind of like a loose question, when I sit for meetings like this, there's a lot of times that we talk policy, and as a black person, I'm like, that is, and like when we talk about sexual human rights, black people don't have sexual human rights, whether it's states, or not, like they would use that, as a reason to kill.
Right.
So like, how are we going to change that aspect so that these type of policy reforms actually do work?
So I'm going to repeat back what I think I'm hearing, because I'm having a lot of trouble hearing, but you're saying that the black citizens do not have Second Amendment rights, because if they have a gun, it's going to be an excuse for if they get a white officer or even just a person to shoot them. And how do we deal with policy around that? Is that right?
And like, that was just an example for like other areas to like ways to educate our society as a whole to eradicate those things so that our laws can be.
I mean, effectively, I think our judicial system in general needs to be re-looked at in a very strong way. That's one area. And some specifics, and you know, we've talked about this a little bit through our Civil Rights Advisory Board, but we need to look at how police are held accountable. If it's, say it's a police shooting, you know, from my viewpoint, if someone has been entrusted with public safety and security, they actually should be held to a higher standard, not a lower standard. And right now, they're being held to a lower standard than other people. So that's one thing that we've got to change, and I think that comes through our penal system. And how do we punish cops that or policemen who really have, you know, like we saw with George Floyd. So that's one area. I mean, the other thing too is just accepting or acknowledging the fact that there is a systemic problem within the police to begin with, and how did that happen? How did we get here? One of the things that we're talking about within the advisory board right now is creating a better and less whitewashed educational system on, again, how we've gotten to where we are today in American history, that we need to accept the good and the bad parts of our history and learn from the parts that have been really detrimental and awful at various points in time and continuously. So I think for, JJ, bring your ideas to the table too, please, but those are some of the areas that I think we need to be looking at, our judicial system as a whole. Where are we flawed and where are we biased towards African Americans and other people of color? How do we fix that, and how do we not incentivize bad behavior again? So again, we're using the idea of policemen who have committed a crime, and clearly in George Floyd's case, that was a murder. We all watched it. There's no reason why that police officer shouldn't be going to jail for many years. And I was really mad, really, really mad when I first saw that they were only going to charge him with third-degree murder. That's not what we saw. I was also mad when the coroner's report came back and they were trying to claim that it wasn't, he didn't die from asphyxiation because of the knee on his neck. I mean, so there's systemic problems all throughout that system, right? The coroner, him or her, I don't know if it was him or her, but was part of that flawed and biased system. So it's a whole overhaul of the whole system that we've got to be looking at.
Not really a question, I think,
Yeah.
and we talked about this too, I think changing how we educate is a huge part of that, starting in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
I think that no child's too young to learn about racism, because I had to learn about it at a young age, so
Sure.
much than your kids.
I agree. And I think you started at a level that a kindergartner understands, and then you elaborate on that as they get older and bring more of it in, and I think you're absolutely right about that. And certainly for my own child, we'll be having those discussions pretty early on in his life, and about treating everyone regardless of any number of different differentiating factors, whether it's race or being LGBTQ or a black woman versus man or right, that you respect the person for who they are, and all these other things don't matter. It's just look at the person for their integrity, for their ethics, for what they're trying to give to society, to their friends and family, and those types of things. And that's how a person should be judged, in my view. And that is what I plan to teach Johnny.
All right.
Okay.
Great. One more?
Oh, sure.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
All I was going to say was you've been down here 5 times.
Yeah.
I want to thank you because this is a small rural community, and I think the fact that you're coming down here shows an investment on your behalf into the community. And with Benoit, with Testa, and we met in York City,
Yep.
there is an energy in this community, and that energy is very strong not to re-elect the president. And
Good.
that energy transfers down to lower ticket.
Yep.
I don't want to say your lower ticket.
Well, no, it's fine. We had down ballot races from there,
Down
absolutely,
ballot.
all the way down. Yeah,
Oh.
It
absolutely.
transfers into down ballot races.
Yes.
And that energy I found when I was out on the Black Lives Matter and talking to different people. It's amazing the energy from women.
Mm-hmm.
Women don't want this man to be re-elected.
No, we do not.
We're not men down here.
No, I was gonna say men and women but women, I mean,
I go around them and I show you a little card and say you register to vote, and a lot of them say yes I am, but thank you very much. We need to follow up and make sure the question you asked me you're going to ask to everybody else, and we need to get voter registration done.
Yes.
And for me, when you're, and also this is a census election, and that plays a lot out in
It
what
does.
happens to the seats from there on it. But so for me, when people come down here, I hope they're not going to work in isolation of the community. I think there are people here who want to be involved, and you're coming down to work with Barbara Willier and whoever's elected. And I think it's very important that you rely on people here, and our voter drive at the moment is small,
Yeah.
but we want to make it bigger, and we want to get more people involved. And so my question for you is, how best can Cowley County, and I see one big weakness is Arc City.
Yeah.
For me, Arc City, we should have more people, we should be having meetings in Arc City to cultivate the voter base down there. And so how best can we help you and at the same time help the other candidates and you?
Yep, no, great question, and thank you for that. And I agree with you wholeheartedly about Arc City, that we've, especially given, you know, that there's a college there too, and getting more of the youth involved as well is going to be a huge piece of this. But to your question of how you can help, helping us just knock doors and things. I mean, simple things, right? I mean, really when it comes to a campaign, it's the hard, kind of boring sometimes, but the hard work that it takes to reach people. And you know, we're doing what I'm calling canvassing light right now. Yeah.
The BLM site.
Well, we're doing that, but we're also going to doors. We're just not knocking them right now. We're leaving the cards behind. The coronavirus makes things a little bit more tricky this year, but that's how we're handling it. We're going to the doors, leaving the, you know, my palm card and my information. And once the coordinated really gets heated up, it won't just be my card. It will be my Boyer's, Ken's potentially, you know, whoever, you know, else is running in this particular location. So having volunteers that are local, helping us know. I know that there are differences between canvassing in, say, an urban area versus a rural area. Again, it's a little different this year because we won't be, at least for now, until we're feeling a little safer, we won't be knocking the doors to have the conversations we would normally like to have. But finding other ways, if we can't do those types of conversations, you know, having you call folks in your own communities on our campaign's behalf is a huge piece of this. Just simply talking with your neighbors and your friends. You all know the people here. You know, this is your community. So, you know, even if you have a friend who's, you know, a little conservative, but maybe not liking Trump so much, you know, those are the people that we need to bring into our fold too. And that will help us win both my race and the others, like I said, the down ballot races. I should introduce Rob. I've actually introduced both my campaign staff there, but Rob Steer is, he's a unique position on my campaign. His job is to engage with both rural folks and youth. Because we want to try to engage both of the, you know, more folks in communities like this, and whether it's in rural or urban, we want to engage more youth to vote this year too. So it's kind of a unique position. Most campaigns don't do that, but early on, I made that decision that those were two demographics, I always say, that we really wanted to engage more this year. And then Blake is an intern for us. If Blake, you want to stand up and say hi? You'll be seeing a lot of our staff down here. Like I said, we're working out of this office a good part of the time. So you'll see Rob, get to know Rob really well because he's going to be here a lot over the coming months. But it's really having these conversations with people. You know, again, you know your own community, and if you can, you know, introduce us to folks that we should be talking with here. You know, even if I can't meet them in person for some reason, I can always call, or if we can't meet in person, I mean, it's about reaching out to people. So the more you can find ways to help us with that, phone banking, canvassing, conversations, introductions, all of those things, that's how we're going to win this race.
More?
Yep.
Over here.
Now go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, 2 questions.
Yep.
Where do you stand on abortion? Is it a very religious state?
Sure.
I am paranoid.
Hey, kind of related, and this is good. So in terms of abortion, I'm pro-choice, and I don't believe that the government needs to be interfering, and legally they don't need to be interfering into a woman's right to choose. Now, here's the other aspect of this for me. I would love to see the rate of abortions go down because no one really likes the idea of abortions, right? So what I would like to work on, this goes to the second part of your question with Planned Parenthood, is creating access to birth control more affordably and readily, sex education more readily, women's health, so that health issues don't come into play in this. I mean, those are the types of things, and quite frankly, if people like Ron Estes and many of the other Republicans, particularly men, but in general, really cared, that's what they would be talking about too. it's not, this is not illegal. It should not be a legal issue, right? When it's needed, and that's a woman's choice to make. But I think we can all agree, whether you label yourself pro-life or pro-choice, that we just want to reduce the reasons why they happen. And that's where I'm coming from with it. So Planned Parenthood, I'm all for it. I think that it's, it prevents as many abortions from happening as it gives them. So it saves lives, helps women who don't necessarily have a lot of income get access to women's health and birth control and whatnot. So that's my viewpoint on it. I will stand very firmly against any legislation that would hurt Planned Parenthood or Trust Women in Wichita and other organizations like that. Yeah.
I would like to say that in the 60s, I was part of an organization in the United States which we started doing sex education in our churches. And Kansas, California, and New York were the first 3 states who made abortion legal in the United States. And my husband was a part of it.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Kansas, in terms of being progressive or not, I mean, Kansas has been a historically progressive state,
What happened?
Yeah, what happened, right? Well, I have theories on that, but in any case, I mean, I think, we need to get back to those roots, and we are. I mean, I'll leave you with this. Kansas is being looked at the national level this year. And having run in 2018, I can tell you that a lot of the groups were kind of looking at Kansas and going, eh? Like, why would we put money into you? You're a red state through and through. This year, they're not saying that. This year, they're looking at us. They're investing a lot in Boye's campaign. They're investing a lot in other campaigns throughout the state. And I think they're realizing that at the very least we're purple, if not headed towards blue in the state. And I think we have in part ground back to think for that, given that he showed people that his theories really didn't work. But also the hard work of people, like all of you, and Vicki Hyatt, who is here in the room, and so many others, and all the candidates that are running. And I think too, we have to realize in this state that every time one of us runs and just steps up, we are moving it forward, and we're getting there. And Democrats are becoming less stigmatized, and that's some of the. And I guess going back to your question, how can you help? Be proud of being a Democrat. Don't hide it, because well, it has been historically scary. But the more that we fight back against that idea that no, be proud to be a Democrat. Why hide it? This is a good thing. We're the party for the people, like literally, right? We're the people who are fighting for all of these fights. For the normal person, we should be proud of that. I'm proud of that, and that's why I'm a Democrat, right? So let's stand up and yeah, there's going to be some pushback on that, but that's the fight we're in. That's the fight for our country right now. Go ahead.
Hi, Laura.
Hello.
How do you feel about immigration? I'm the granddaughter of 4 immigrants who came on a boat.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, so. I'm not let's see, I'm a 5th generation, but, or something like that, depending on which side of the family, but I'm all for people coming here. I think that, people from all around the world have a lot to contribute to our nation.
Our country's suffering right now.
Yeah.
Because not enough immigrants are here to do the jobs that they're normally
Well,
doing.
so, there's the aspect of the economics around it, there's the humanitarian aspects of it, there's the fact that our country was founded on immigrants from the beginning, and we seem to have lost that idea. But no, I am all for, and I personally believe that diversity only strengthens us, that it only makes us better people, and that we're bringing in new ideas and new cultures and foods even. I mean, just all these different aspects of what makes a world, our country more well-rounded and whatnot. So, I think that we need to make sure that people who, the criminals that do come in, which is rare, that we deport those people, right? But beyond that, if someone's here and they're here because they're trying to create, trying to help their families or creating a life for themselves and are here to be a contributing part of society, we should welcome them. And I don't think it's that hard of a division to make, yeah.
All question on that is actually sitting.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm actually okay with them. Because I think right now, until we get our immigration system set up better, you know, that they serve a good purpose of allowing folks to stay, protecting folks to stay, but if we can find a better path to citizenship, or at least longer term ways to stay legally, I don't have a problem with it. Let's put it that way.
This is more of a comment
Yeah.
than a question. You know, when I was back in California a couple of years ago, I was working for Whole Foods, and I was working in their kitchen. And most of the women who worked the kitchen were all, well, some of them were illegal immigrants.
Sure.
And, you know, I got to know them on a very personal level. And, you know, I just have to ask the question for anybody who's sitting on the fence. If you had children and they were going hungry, if they were starving, if they were in danger every single day because the neighborhood that they lived in was full of gangs that were shooting each other and your kids were in the line of fire, what would you not do in order to get them to safety? What would you not do?
Absolutely.
And everybody has to ask themselves that question, you know?
I agree with you. I mean, I think it speaks to a certain amount of lack of empathy of other people's circumstances. And I discovered a year or so after my friend got his legal status, but I had a friend that had for years, had no idea he was here legally. And later when it came to light that he had been, and now he's got his green card and whatnot today. But the reason he came over was his entire family was able to come over here legally, and because of his age at the time, he was the only one who was going to be left behind. So you know, it's one of those things, right, where you hear these individual stories, and again, if you're an empathetic person, you understand why some of them make the choices that they do. And it wasn't, you know, talking with him later, you know, and asking him about his experiences of being effectively a legal immigrant here. What was it like? And I mean, his choices were so limited. He was a server for many, many years and paid taxes into the system, but, you know, didn't gain much back from it, you know, in terms of, so when people say, you know, they're utilizing our system, no, like, they're paying taxes into the system and again, not getting the same level of benefits back. And, you know, effectively, because he had to make these decisions, his life was stalled in certain ways. I mean, he was a college, on his way to finishing a college degree. He was from Peru. And of course now, even though he's now legally here, does that degree translate here? Or any of the schooling had? No. So you have to start all over, right? So I mean, all of those different aspects of how our system works that works against people who are just simply trying to live their lives and be with their families. And I'll add this to the story that he started the process of getting his green card 7 years before it ever happened. So when people say, you know, that, well, why don't they just wait? Well, it's 7 years of not being with your family. It's a long time. I mean, it's a really long time. So, you know, it's one of those things where people do the best they can, and if he was trying to do it the right way, but the system was just, it wasn't going to work, right, that way. So, so that's the personal story of a friend of mine, but, you know, here we are. So we have a lot of work to do. I am really glad that the Supreme Court made Dreamers, the DACA programs, legal. I think that's a good step in the right direction, and hopefully bodes well to future cases like that will start to amend a very flawed immigration system. So, all right, I guess I'll stop there because otherwise I'll take up the whole time.
There you go. I know.
Thanks, everybody.